Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar, which is one of around 40 events run this year as part of the IHS Jane's online seminar series. They're available to all customers of Jane's Intelligence Centre or module products, including the DS Forecast products. My name is Peter Felted, and as editor of IHS Jane's Events Weekly, I'll be chairing the event today, which draws substantially on material gathered by the JDW team in producing our 2015 Annual Defence Report. Now, as 2015 began, the year hardly looked like one in which peace would break out anywhere other than Colombia, where ongoing peace talks between the government and FARC rebels have at least showed signs of progress. Elsewhere, Russian adventurism in Eastern Europe and the Islamic State holding sway in Iraq and Syria were chief among the world's geopolitical concerns in early 2015. However, as Russian President Vladimir Putin turned his attention from the one to the other, the situation in eastern Ukraine was left to become yet another frozen conflict as the year progressed, while conversely oil was poured on the Syrian fire from September as Russia initiated air and missile strikes to prop up the flagging fortunes of the Assad regime. The situation in Iraq and Syria has thus become more complicated than ever, with a reluctance among Western nations to get involved, wearied as they had been by the campaigns of the past decade in Iraq and Afghanistan, ultimately only guaranteeing they faced a worse situation when they finally took action. While the United States was reticent to support the non-inclusive administration of Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, its duty to protect what so much US and coalition blood had been spilt to build made military action against the Islamic State inevitable after the Iraqi military collapsed in mid-2014. Extensive European support for action against the Islamic State was limited prior to this year, but the terrorist attacks in Paris, first against the Charlie Hebdo satirists on 7th of January, and then the atrocities of 13th of November, gave France no choice but to act. After UN Resolution 2249 urged all members to take all necessary measures against the Islamic State and to eradicate the safe haven the Islamic State and other militant groups had established, Germany moved to support French deployments, while the UK augmented its involvement to include bombing sorties over Syria as well as Iraq just last week. Yet the aims and motivations of the various international players involved in Iraq and Syria remain incongruously diverse. Russia, most obviously, is clearly more concerned about propping up its client regime than countering the Islamic State, a position that has led it to expend much of its ordnance over Syria on rebel groups that the West would regard as potential allies. An indication of such international non-alignment came on 24th of November when a Turkish F-16 shot down a Russian Su-24 that violated its airspace while bombing northern Syria, an incident that could easily have led to events spiraling out of control. In searching for any hopeful glimpse of how the conflict in Syria and Iraq might end, perhaps all that can be said is that with Western European nations as well as Russia now having a solid military stake in the game, the chances of a consensus ultimately emerging on how to end the bloodshed might have improved. And so to kick us off with the Americas, I'll first hand over to Dan.
All right, thank you very much, Pete. I'll try to cover this hemisphere as best we can. That was already a pretty good introduction to a lot of the things happening there. U.S. President Barack Obama had made ending the wars he'd inherited in Afghanistan and Iraq a major goal for his administration, but both states really remain mired in conflict that still very much involved the U.S. military, albeit at a much smaller commitment level. But it now appears both conflicts will be left for the next U.S. president, who will take office in January 2017.